Yeah, before we bring in our guest, guys, I just want to remind you that it's winners take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much more. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And today we're welcoming in Scott Braun, executive producer and host of Foul Territory. You can check out Foul Territory show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, with insiders like Ken Rosenthal, AJ Pierzynski, Jason Kipnis, Todd Frazier, and many more big leaguers, bringing in real talk to reaction to news and MLB player interviews. Scott, welcome.
Scott, how are you, man? Thanks for joining us. By the way,
fellas, good to see you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. By the way, I love when Todd Frazier talks because, as a New Yorker, I grew up in New York, and now I'm a Clevelander because I've been living here for so long. But I feel like there's so few baseball players that have New York, New Jersey accents. So whenever I hear Todd Frazier talk with his, I think he's from New Jersey,
He's
right?
from Tom's River.
Tom's River, right, which is the big Little League town there. I love hearing the accent, and so that's always fun. He's a great personality.
He is. He was when he was a player. He was when he was a little leaguer. You're right. He's a little league legend. He can probably go a day without hearing about it. He still lives in Tom's River, so he's a legend down there. But you're right. There aren't many baseball players or personalities that actually bring that thick New York or New Jersey accent. So it makes him stand out. He's one of one.
And let me tell you something about Scott, guys, by the way. First of all, he's been excellent for a long time since he was doing MLB Network. I'm not just saying this because you hear Scott. There's two guys, not including ex-players, even though some ex-players aren't very good, but not including ex-players, of guys that are like media members that cover baseball. And you know me, I'm very snobby about baseball. I love baseball, and I think most people in the media suck covering baseball.
Scott, he's not lying. For
but
the record.
That's how I'm very obnoxious about it. But the two guys that are my favorites that do a great job are Scott and then my guy Mike Ferrin from MLB Radio. They know the sport inside and out. They know the minor leaguers. They know the major leaguers. And I think we're at a time, like when I first came up in the business, I felt like a lot of people knew baseball. And now in sports talk and stuff, a lot of hosts just know basketball and football. They don't know baseball, which is why we need a show like yours, which is great to focus just on baseball. So kudos to the career path you've gone on, and I love what you guys are doing there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I left. I worked for MLB for years. I left because I felt like there was a massive void here, right? There are so many great football and basketball related programs out there, or even athlete driven shows. And there wasn't anything at all for baseball. And you're spot on about the national perspective on baseball these days. Most people don't know what they're talking about. They're not watching. They're not paying attention. They barely talk about it. And when they do, it's usually embarrassing, right?
Yes.
So I'm with you, and I appreciate the praise. And Farron's awesome, too. He's one of the dudes that I listen to. I'm a snob, too, right? Because you want to listen to people that are educating you, making you smarter, also giving you authentic takes. It's hard to find sometimes. So we preach that here, too.
Love it.
Scott, speaking of guys, it's funny because baseball used to be my favorite sport in this country. I didn't start even playing football until I was 14. I played baseball when I was 6. My dad was a coach. He had us hitting ping pong balls and birdies and running around. When you talk about the entire game, what do you contribute to some of that? I guess luster off the game. It was America's pastime. I remember waking up every single morning trying to figure out if Griffey hit another home run or what Frank Thomas was doing. And we just knew the players, we knew the pitchers, we knew everybody. What happened between the home run chase and today that is just people just tuned out?
Different game. And I look at the marketing. I think that's the reason why people tuned out. The NFL is its own beast. And I know you guys cover all sports. I was just listening to some of your Browns conversations. But I think the path to follow is, what has the NBA done over the last 10 to 15 years? What has MLB done over the last 10 to 15 years? And we can go category by category. And that includes allowing accounts and other media companies to freely use highlights as they please. That was a decision that the NBA made, I think, 10 to 15 years ago. And they said, we're going to be pretty easygoing because as long as people aren't showing live streams of our games, they're promoting us for free worldwide.
Thank you.
MLB took a different direction. Okay, so that's one example. Marketing players. NBA versus MLB is not even in the same stratosphere. And I know it was different years back when I think the sneaker game became big in the NBA world, right? As that grew, it just became such a separation between NBA players and MLB. But that can't be the only reason why there are so many more recognizable names and faces in the NBA. I think it has to do with the league treating players like partners. MLB treats the other side, as in the players, as their opponent in labor negotiations.
Right.
And that makes every little thing difficult to do. And that even includes your basic commercial and your campaign. That includes your uniforms. You put out new uniforms in Major League Baseball that the players despise. They can't stop talking about how ridiculous they are. Fans see how ridiculous they are. How does that happen? That happens because there's a lack of communication and they're treated as the opponent in a legal battle, right? That's what the collective bargaining agreement looks like. So I think that helps to explain some examples of why the sport has so drastically changed. And we got to grip the younger audience. And I think MLB has fallen behind there as well in terms of digital and social and authenticity and the way that players talk about drama in the game. In the NBA, we'll have a huge dramatic moment for a month, like in a month that's over a 1 or 2 day period. And I always joke on our show on Foul Territory, I'll go, you know what they call this in the NBA? Tuesday. Because players embrace it and media embraces it and players will go on shows and podcasts and talk about it. And in MLB, generally the league, the teams, etc., will say, don't talk about this. Let's shush it. We don't want any attention on this. Yeah. Like, you're not like a publicly traded company that's worried about a recall on a product. You want people to talk about this crap. So there's some examples of what we're missing.
No doubt.
Scott, we are a Cleveland show, obviously, so I'm curious what your take is from the outside perspective looking in. The Guardians are off to a great start. They're overperforming our expectations. Are you buying the Guardians being a legit contender in the American League this year?
I don't buy them as a contender, as in a World Series contender, but they are one of the most surprising teams so far this season. I think they're going to be a wild card and or division contender all year because the AL Central is still the worst division in baseball. I know it's off to a decent start. We'll look at the records right here. That's pretty shiny. That's better than most people thought. Detroit, I think we imagined would be in that 500 range. If you're not paying attention to baseball, then all you need to know is the White Sox are absolutely awful. They're going to be awful for the next few years. Kansas City's on the rise, Cleveland's on the rise, and Minnesota, after a slow start, has been gangbusters for the most part. So I am surprised about Cleveland's start, but I'm not buying it. I'm not even buying them still as a playoff team, despite them being in first place right now. I think the Twins are going to win the division. I think Cleveland finishes either in second or third place, around the same spot as Kansas City and Detroit. I think there's not enough offense. The bats have been better this year, but I still don't think there's enough there. I'm actually worried for the first time in a minute about their starting rotation. They lose Bieber for the rest of the season. Gavin Williams hasn't come back yet. They don't have as much depth, and some of their upper echelon prospects haven't panned out. We'll see how Manzardo does on offense. I think Bo Naylor will eventually hit. But still, to me, guys, it's 2 or 3 players and a bunch of no names in the lineup and guys that are not supposed to be above average hitters. So I think they're more like a 500-ish team that's been off to a hot start because they play good defense and they have an elite bullpen.
Yeah, I unfortunately, Scott, I agree with everything you say in there. I mean, you look at the statistics outside of the bullpen, and you're like, how are they winning? The rotation's been bad. I mean, it flat out has. I mean, Tanner Bybee did a better job his last start, but overall he struggled. The Bieber injury was a killer. Josh Naylor's been fantastic. Quan was great till he got hurt. Even Jose, he's been better, but he hasn't been superstar Jose. Jimenez has been fine. We know David Fry's done a great job in his part-time role. The rest of the lineup is terrible. I mean, they got OPSs in the 500s and low 600s. And the frustrating part is we know the Guardians have a top-notch front office. We know these guys are really good. But ownership in recent years, they've always had a lower payroll, but in recent years, since COVID, it's been pathetic. He doesn't let them spend it all. Like, I look at this team and I'm like, they need at least one starting pitcher, and they need between right field, center field, and shortstop, they need to add at least 2 bats. But I have no faith they'll do any of that, let alone even one of those things, because if they did, then they could be a legit contender. And I know I'm rambling here, but I feel like and I love the Orioles, I love them, But I do feel like the American League is more open than it's been, and so I think other teams should be more aggressive, but I just have no faith that they will.
First off, you're spot on about the offense. Jimenez should be a nice player on offense. Ramirez should hit a little bit better than he has so far based on what he's done for a long time, and he's certainly not done by any means. He has prime years left to go in my mind. And then there's two other bats. Quan, who's hurt right now, and then Naylor, who's been awesome for them.
Amazing.
It looks like he'll be a clutch 30-home run bat, and that's a great pickup from them from the Padres a few years ago. The other bats you're talking about, which is basically the other half of the lineup, in my mind, is not supposed to be good. Like, it's not a high-ceiling group, as opposed to the Braves, who actually had slow starts from Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr., Austin Riley. We know they're going to hit. With Cleveland, we're like, okay, there's a few dudes off to really good starts. They might cool off. The other guys off to crappy starts probably aren't going to heat up that much. So
Naylor, that's it. Bo Naylor's the only one.
Right, Naylor should hit a little bit more, and I like Manzardo as a hitting prospect.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Still, their runners in scoring position numbers are off the charts right now. Those are going to come down, so their offense is going to cool. I guarantee it. On the money situation, we love talking about this because I couldn't talk about it much in my last job when I was working for the league. It's embarrassing. You can't operate like this. The biggest disease in the sport right now, actually, for owners, is the Tampa Bay Rays. And I give them all the credit in the world. It's not on Tampa Bay. Here's what I'm talking about. Their model has worked for a long time. They've barely had losing seasons during the existence of the franchise. And they operate at a pretty low payroll. It's actually a little higher than people think these days, but it's still pretty low. What does that do? That enables many other owners to say, if they can do it, so can we. Right. You can't have 10 Tampa Bay Rays in Major League Baseball. That will never happen. You might have a few of them. Cleveland's been one of the better teams in terms of pitching development for years now. That doesn't mean you can get away with not spending it all and being a bottom five-ish payroll. If you never play in free agent waters, you might every once in a blue moon get lucky and have 1 or 2 years where everything clicks, right? But for the most part, you're not going to have a consistent winner. There's that side. The other side is what Baltimore just did, which is also rare. Tanking for 6 years, like all-out tanking, right? Yeah. We are getting rid of any player with value, and we're getting top-end picks. They nailed some of their later picks, but we did create a lottery system now in Major League Baseball where, for example, the White Sox, they're going to suck this year again. They can't get a top 10 pick next year. So you can't tank like the Orioles just did in that last process. So, yeah, if you're a Cleveland fan, you should be pissed. This team shouldn't be operating at this low of a payroll. And it's even more disappointing in a year like this, where if they did 1 or 2 things in the offseason, like pick up another bat, they could be a legitimate contender to answer that first question. Yeah. They'll get the first pick. They'll probably get Charlie Condon, who I think can help them starting next year. But you can't operate like this where you never spend in free agency. You know what that's called? The Pittsburgh Pirates. Do you want to be like the Pittsburgh Pirates?
That's it. Well, I'd like to have Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. Yeah. I'd love to have those guys. But besides that, I wouldn't want to be the Pirates.
Scott, you mentioned Bo Naylor, and I know Bo mentioned Bo Naylor as well. This is not necessarily a Bo Naylor specific question. I'm just using it as an example to ask a bigger picture question. But he played about 60 games last year, about 40 games into this season, about 100 MLB games under his belt now. When do you start to have legitimate concerns about a hitting prospect who's not producing at the plate while also still being patient, knowing he's a young kid still learning his ropes in the MLB?
Every player, it's different, but it's still a while away in my mind from thinking, hey, this guy's not going to hit enough in the bigs. So I don't have an exact number for you. I mean, that's probably a better question for the dude whose seat I'm sitting in right now, AJ Przinsky, when he starts our show. Yeah, I see. It's not great. It's 178, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 541 OPS. Often also at the catcher position, it takes longer because it's quarterback, right? There's so much else to do at that position. You see a lot of catchers struggle. You know what else you see? You see many top-end picks. Like I'm talking top 3, 5, 10 picks in the draft who are decorated catchers who really hit in college, who don't end up hitting in the major leagues yet become just average regulars in the bigs. Thinking of Joey Bart. Austin Hedges, I believe, was a high-end pick. If you go back a little bit more, Ben Davis was in that category. Guys like that who actually play for a while, they just don't hit like you think they do. And I think some of that has to do with the catcher position. Suffice to say, I actually don't think Naylor will be in that category. I don't know if his ceiling's like a William Contreras, like one of the top 3 catcher bats in baseball, but I do think he'll at least be an average bat. based on what I've seen from him in the minor leagues. I think the adjustment period's just been a little bit more difficult for him in terms of chasing pitches.
What's your theory on all the elbow injuries?
My theory is there's no solution. No. That's the biggest problem. There's no solution. There's a lot of blame game, but I don't really care because no one has an answer. Oh, we gotta fix it with rules. Which rule? I haven't heard a good example yet. We gotta fix it with the way that we have teams developing pitching. They don't care. They care about winning. That's how front offices work. Their job is to put a winning product on the field. They're not worried about if the guy's going to last 8 or 9 years. Actually, going back to the Rays conversation, they usually seem to have as many pitching injuries as anyone, where guys will be gangbusters out of the bullpen for them and then they'll disappear after 3-4 years. Some of that could be due to the fact that they go there and often their velocity ticks up and they rely on secondary pitches more that could cause more strain on the elbow. Again, that's not really their problem. Their problem is to win. So I don't know how you prevent that. And how you tell a guy, hey, I can make you better and make you stick in the majors if you use your slider 65% of the time instead of 20% of the time. There's a chance you could get hurt in 3 years and your elbow could break. The guy's going to be like, I don't care. I want to stick in the bigs. So I don't know what the solution is. Some people point to the youth level, same thing. What's your solution? What are you going to do? Oh, it's a problem at the youth level. What's your fix? Are you going to make a U.S. law that you can't throw X amount of pitches if you're 12 years old? So that's my theory. My theory is there's all kinds of there's 10 reasons why this is a problem, right? Some players point to the pitch clock. Sure, that might be a part of the problem. I don't think it's the main problem. I think velocity is the problem. Your arm's not trained to do this. But what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Make a rule in Major League Baseball that you can't throw over 95 miles an hour? Like, there's just not a good fix here right now. I haven't heard one. Have you guys? Have you heard one good fix?
Nothing. You got to live with it.
No.
That's just something you have to prepare for as a major league team. And by the way, my starting pitcher for my little league team last night, I had to pull him out after 4. He had a sore back. He told me he's 12 years old. He had a sore back. I had to pull him out of the game. We're turned to 2-2 tie. For crying out loud. He did a nice job. Good job.
You're calling for too many secondary pitches. That's probably a problem. You calling for too many sliders for him? He's like,
I had curveballs, No. He had 10 strikeouts through 4. He was dominating.
You didn't.
But he did a good
you
job.
didn't properly stretch him out. During
I think
spring
I
training.
did. I think we kind of rushed. We rushed the preparation. That screwed up his back. All right, Scott. This is the most important question. All right. Do you watch wrestling at all? I'm not a big wrestling guy, but do you watch it?
WWE?
Yeah.
I did a lot when I was a kid. I haven't watched much over the last year or two. During COVID, a little bit more. So I know some names.
Okay, so you don't need to know the names, but you know what the Royal Rumble when you got to throw guys over the top rope to get them out. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, see, there you go.
This guy.
There you go. I love it.
That's real. That's Pierzynski got it from Edge.
Okay, so
nice.
now you got in the ring Pierzynski, Papelbon, Todd Frazier, Jason Kipnis,
And Ken Rosenthal. We're throwing Ken in there anyway. I'm throwing Ken in there anyway.
Let me tell you something. I saw Ken in a restaurant this winter. I was down in Florida. I saw him in a restaurant. I didn't bother him. And the guy's like 4'6".
I know. That's why I'm throwing him in there
100
anyway.
pounds.
Rey Mysterio won a bunch
Okay,
of
you want to
WWE
throw him in there too?
championships.
Fine. Scott, who is winning that Royal Rumble with those guys? Who's the champ?
Did you include Kratz? He's kind of our
He's a catcher, so all right. I forgot about him. Let's go ahead, throw him in too.
He's a house.
Yeah,
he's a house. There's been fights because Eric Kratz played in the major leagues for a long time. He's one of the stars of our show. He played in the minor leagues for a long time. He knows everyone, and he's a house. I mean, I've been over at his home studio quite a bit, and he's working the weights as well as anyone. I probably would give it to Kratz, honestly. I would say, with ease. I would give it to Kratz. He survives the Royal Rumble. I think he's got the endurance. There are stories that Kratz can tell, and he's told some of them on our show, where he's like holding huge dudes back in a fight, and just by holding them, he's like breaking their fingers. Like, he's got those kind of stories going on. He's big. He still works out. So I would say he's the easy winner. Ken will be the first person to tell you he's not Rey Mysterio.
No.
There's not flexibility. There's not strength there.
No.
Kipnis would probably also be another one to tell you he's not Mr. Strength. He's pretty small. I think he's probably about 6 feet tall. So the next person in line, I would say it's probably close with AJ and Pat, but I'll give it to AJ. AJ's also a big catcher.
Yeah,
He's been through a
catchers
lot
are tough.
fights-wise. He's still got that dad strength going on. So I'll go power rankings, Kratz 1, Pierzynski 2, maybe Papelbon 3 from our group. And then I'd have to think about it because we got about 12 guys on our roster now.
I mean, Papelbon almost chokeslammed Bryce Harper back in the day, as we know. Last thing really quick, Scott, I'm going to tell you, just because you brought this up, I'm going to tell you a story that I think you'll appreciate. So my first year in this business, I was doing play-by-play for the Batavia Muck Dogs, which in 99 to 01 was the Phillies A-ball affiliate at the time, right? New York Penn League. In those 3 years, the guys who played there for Marlon Byrd, Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Ryan Madsen were the 4 big names, right? All good guys. Ryan Howard was my favorite of the 4. He was so awesome. Okay, we had a brawl in, I believe it was 2000. I can't remember which year it was, but there was a brawl against the Williamsport Crosscutters. They were the Pirates affiliate. The whole thing started, by the way, over somebody hitting on somebody else's girlfriend. That's how the whole thing started. But the two funniest things ever that I thought you'd appreciate it. Number one, the 2 managers for the Crosscutters, it was Curtis Wilkerson, who I'm sure you remember, and for the Phillies, it was a guy who didn't play in the big leagues named Frank Klebe. But he was a former Golden Gloves boxer. They were squaring up behind home plate like they were having a boxing match. But the funniest thing ever, Marlon Byrd, there was this little tiny guy on the other team. Marlon Byrd chased him down the first base line, and I don't remember the player's name. He was so scared he ran into the clubhouse to get away from Marlon Byrd. It was nuts. And one of the pitchers in street clothes for our team, guy by the name of Frank Brooks, who pitched 4 innings in the big leagues, I can't remember for who it was in the Phillies, he went to my high school too, was standing in the press box talking to me when it started in his street clothes, ran onto the field. Lucky he didn't get arrested because you can't really do that in his street clothes.
No.
One of the all-time greatest brawls ever.
Is that on video? Was that on video back then? 'Cause a lot of minor league games weren't,
That
Probably
we did not have
not.
that game on video. The owner, the GM of the team wouldn't even let me do play-by-play for home games because he thought people wouldn't come to the game. So we only did road games, which was stupid, but totally ridiculous. But he wasn't a baseball guy, so he's an idiot. But I wish I could find a video of that. And unfortunately, I wasn't even calling the game on the radio. But that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen on a baseball field in my life, non-baseball. I mean, it was unreal, and I thought you'd appreciate that.
I do. 2 quick things. Number one, don't forget, Marlon Byrd was pretty strong, and he was a roids guy. He got popped for PED. Okay, so little roid rage action. And 2, you know what that makes me think about, because we're on the Cleveland show here. Down goes Anderson. We've had Tom Hamilton on multiple times. I think he's the best radio broadcaster in the business and maybe one of the best all time. So that call and that moment, how often do you see that where
Unreal.
Also, remember, nobody's that quick to help out TA last year when he squares up against Jose, and he's like, all right, if I have to, I'll give him a little hook, and
that's right.
He went down. So
I thought you were going to tell Scott about the time you did play-by-play on the toilet.
Oh, yeah. That's another story for another day. I actually did an inning of play-by-play from the bathroom. It was in the minor leagues.
Bathroom experience or about a game?
He was taking a shit and doing play-by-play because he could see through the window.
Right, but are you play-by-playing like, here comes the toilet paper, oh, we're running out of pitches?
No. I was I was actually calling the game. I don't know listen, it's A ball. There was probably 37 people listening to the game on the radio. But I was on the toilet calling the game. Because, in the minors, a lot of these games, you just one-person show. So I grabbed my crowd mic that was hanging down on the net behind home plate. I pulled it up. It happened to be in the Jamestown Jammer Stadium. They happened to have a bathroom in the press box. I opened the door, looking out on the field. There you go. All-time moment.
That's why you're a legend. That's how you stay in the business, okay? You do whatever it takes to stay in the broadcasting
That's
world.
it. And but listen, if you like baseball, if you love baseball, you have to watch Foul Territory. You guys are live every day at 1, correct?
Yep, every day, 1 o'clock Eastern time. We got a big announcement soon about some TV deals and all of that. But you can catch us wherever you get your pods. Look up Foul Territory. But anything big going on in the game, we'll cover it in a way that you won't get elsewhere. And we talk to 1 or 2 MLB players per day on the show too. So yeah, it's cool. We've put a lot into this, just like you guys. You guys are crushing it, obviously. In Cleveland.
Thank you.
So same kind of tier just for Major League Baseball.
It's awesome. It's a great show. If you love baseball, it's really the one thing you got to be watching, no doubt. Thanks, Scott. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Scott. Have a good one.
Appreciate you guys. This was fun.
got it.
Anytime. Cheers.
All right.